A top story after Pakistan, US Foreign Minister Mike Pompeo has arrived in India for the 2+2 dialogue. India's Foreign Minister Sushma Swaraj received him at the airport. Now, ahead of the trip, Pompeo has tried to downplay concerns in India that New Delhi could face sanctions if it buys oil from Iran and goes ahead with plans to buy the S-400 missile defense system from Russia. As per the American law called the CAATSA, or Countering American Adversaries Through Sanctions Act, any country doing business with America's rivals such as Iran or Russia could face sanctions. Pompeo and US Defense Minister James Mattis will take part in the maiden 2+2 dialogue with India today. And joining me live from New Delhi, Siddhant Sibal, who will be tracking those developments very closely. Siddhant, the stage is finally set for the highly anticipated and the first ever 2+2 dialogue. What is likely to be on the agenda today?
Well, yes, the stage is all set, and in a short while from now, there will be a bilateral between the Defence Secretary Jim Mattis and Raksha Mantri Nirmala Sitharaman. Behind me is the place where it's going to take place at the South Block, and then at 10 o'clock, there will be bilateral between India's External Affairs Minister and her counterpart Secretary of State, Mr. Pompeo. But focus will be on convergences and areas of concerns. Broadly, it will help and provide opportunity to refocus on areas of convergence. There are, of course, three main areas of convergences: Pakistan, Afghanistan and defence. On defence, it's COMCASA agreement that's likely to be discussed, though our sources tell us it might not be signed. It was taken up by the Indian cabinet yesterday in the evening, and it's one of the three foundational defence agreements between India and America or any other ally. LEMOA has been signed, COMCASA is under discussion, and another one, BECA, will also be discussed, but not that is definite that it won't be signed. On Afghanistan, they share their broad agenda about Afghanistan, how to bring Afghanistan back on track. India has been providing a lot of aid, and America has been lauding that. And finally, on Pakistan, both agree that the country is providing sanctuaries to terror. And remember, Secretary of State Mr. Pompeo came to Delhi from Islamabad, and if we compare both the trips, there is a stark difference. Of course, the big thing is that Secretary Pompeo got a cold welcome in Islamabad with a grade 21 officer receiving him. Not even the Foreign Secretary here in Delhi. He was received by India's External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj at the airport, and he's spending an entire day here in Delhi. In Islamabad, he just spent a few hours, just 5 or 6 hours, and finally there was no press conference, a joint press conference, which is usually the norm. Mr. Qureshi, who is the foreign minister, had to do the press conference alone. But here in Delhi, there will be a press conference by all the four ministers who are participating in the 2+2 dialogue. But finally, on the issues of concerns, there are a lot of issues of concern when it comes to New Delhi and Washington. First being the sanctions, the Iranian sanctions and the Russian sanctions. Well, when it comes to India-Iran ties, India imports a lot of oil from Iran, and India is a growing economy. It needs oil. And America has been putting sanctions on Iran. First set of sanctions have been placed in August. The second set of sanctions will come in place in November, and that can impact India's economy.
Right,
other, of course, is Chabar. Other than this is the Russian sanctions, the S-400 deal. That if deal goes forward, India can be part. India can come under American sanctions, and as you have already mentioned, the CAATSA agreement, CAATSA law is responsible for that sanctions waiver. There's a provision of waiver by the US president. Question is, will the US president provide a waiver or not? Pentagon has said it might be difficult.
Siddhant, like you said, that US sanctions on Russia and Iran are likely to have a deep impact in India. So how will India navigate through these sanctions and make sure that they also get the right deal, even if US is imposing sanctions on Russia and Iran?
Well, that's something that will be discussed today, and both sides have to show some flexibility when it comes to this issue, because they have to, this is all about diplomacy. They have to put across their point, and our sources tell us that India will tell the Americans that India needs energy. India, of course, is trying to diversify its energy resources, including getting oil, shale gas from America. This is for the first time. The first shipment of shale gas India received last year from America. So that India will try to tell the Americans when they sit across the table. When it comes to Russia, India will also tell that there is a legacy issue. India and Russia, the former Soviet Union, have been partners, and India has a lot of defense equipment, approximately 70% whose origin is from Russia. So India obviously will tell that India can't just overnight change to American system, but Americans will try to tell that you have to change the system to get that favor. Remember, Donald Trump is just not another president. He is also a businessman. He would try to extract that pound of flesh from the Indian side. That remains an issue. But other than the sanctions, there is another issue, the issue of trade. We all know Americans are turning nationalist. Economic nationalism is in the air in Washington. It's becoming more protectionist, and that is why India might have to give more, shell out more to the Americans, because it's kind of a deal which is happening. As I've already told you that we have a different president. He's a businessman also. So these are the concerns. India will try to put its concern, because this is the highest body between India and Americans, the 2+2 dialogue, the highest political leadership meeting. So that's why both the sides will put their concerns and areas of convergences.
Right, Siddhant. We'll be coming back to you as the 2+2 dialogue goes ahead. Of course, remember, this is the first 2+2 dialogue between the US and India. Very interesting. We'll be coming back to you as the story develops further.